Hello, my name is Blake. I'm the digitization coordinator here at the Pueblo City County Library District. And what that means is that I am the one in charge of scanning archival materials here in the library, stuff like these slides right here. And we understand right now that everyone's at home, and the digital memory lab that we have here at the library, which can create really high quality scans of your slides, is offline at the moment. So I'm going to show you how to take materials that you already have lying around, like this box, the shopping bag, and a light. And I'm going to show you how you can scan your slides to good enough to make prints. So this is just an example of what I've done. This is what's called a light box. And a light box is essentially just that. It's a box with a light on it. So that way when you stick your slides on it, you can see them. So I'll turn on my light here, and you can see that we have a glowing square there. And when we put our slide here on the window, and we put it behind, you can see that it lights up the slide. That might be a little bit out of focus right now, but I'll show you what that looks like a little bit more up close here in a second. So you can make one of these light boxes with just about any box. This one was done with a disposable glove box. I'm going to show you how to make one here with an old tea box that I just found in my desk. You can do this with a cereal box, with a tissue box, just any kind of paperboard box. So let's get started and go ahead and make our box. So we'll switch to the overhead view now. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our slide and we're going to put it right here on top of our box. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a marker and we're just going to draw a border around our slide. Just a little bit larger on all sides. So that way we can make sure that we see okay. And we won't be cutting off any of our slide there. So what we now have is just this black box. What we're going to do is we're going to take some scissors or a craft knife if you're very careful. And we're just going to cut this out. So I'm just going to kind of score along this edge here to make it a little bit easier to cut. Just tape on the box. Okay, that gives me enough to cut into this box now. So we're just going to keep cutting out this window in our box, and this is going to be where the plastic sits for our light box. So we're going to cut this out, and then we have this last little flap here, and I'm going to make sure I cut that out too, just so that way we make sure that we don't have anything in the way. That should be good enough to just put it on. So now we have a box here with just a window in it. Like I said, you can do this with just about any box that you have, just as long as this kind of material, like I said, tissue box, shoe box, anything like that. So now we're going to talk about our bag and how we're going to do what's called diffusing the light. And I have a plastic bag here. And you want a relatively thick plastic bag, and because the grocery bags that you get from the store aren't thick enough to diffuse the light like we want. So you'll get these really, I'll show you what I'm talking about here. So if you look, we have this light, and there's 5 LEDs in this light, which you can't really see because of the way it's on the camera. But if you look, and I bring that up close, you should be able to see kind of how the 5 LEDs, they show up individually. They don't show up as one glowing light source. So we want to make sure that we have a thick plastic bag to make sure we diffuse that light. So I'm going to take my bag here and my box, and I'm just going to cut out a rough rectangle that's longer and wider than this square. And if any of you have any questions at any point during this, since we're live, go ahead and type them, and I have somebody here off camera who will relate them to me. So if anybody has any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. So I'm going to cut a couple rectangles here just to make sure, just to be safe. And like I said, they don't have to be precise, just as long as they're wider. So I didn't cut that quite wide enough, so I'm just going to have to cut it again. So we'll go out to about here, and we'll just cut this off. Right about there. Okay. So we go ahead and make sure that that's bigger than our window, and it is. And we're going to go ahead and cut one more of those, so that way we just get a little bit more light diffusing power. Okay. All right. So now we're done with our bag, and we can just go ahead and set this off on the side here. Now what we'll do is I have a hot glue gun here. Now, obviously I have to say hot glue gun is very hot, and so be careful you don't burn yourself. But what we're going to do is we're going to just lay down a really thin bead of hot glue here along the edge of our first rectangle here. Then I'm going to just simply put our second rectangle right on top of that. We're just going to glue those together. We're going to let that cool for just a second. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to glue the other side of our rectangle together here. And you want to be careful with this because the hot glue can sometimes melt your plastic bag if you're not careful. So make sure you don't leave your nozzle for your hot glue gun on the bag for too long. Otherwise, you might melt the plastic. So now we have this rectangle of plastic shopping bag material that we're just going to now use. We're going to glue this in here. And what we're going to do is I have one of these flaps open on the box, if I can find which one it is. So now we can see we have that from underneath here, right? Just like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold these flaps out so I get maximum access. And if you're using a box like this one here that I used for my first experiment for this, you can go ahead and just cut out the entire bottom of this. So that might be a little bit easier for you too. So this is about the same size as a Kleenex box. So this would work really well too. So what we'll do now, make sure you can see, angle it here, is I'm going to take my hot glue gun here, and I'm just going to put another little bead of hot glue down the edge. And then I'm going to take my little plastic rectangle here, and I'm just going to push that onto there to glue that on. Just like that. So now we have one edge here. Now we have one edge glued on to what's going to become our light box. And then we're going to take another thin bead of glue. Keep that out of the way. And before I do this, I'm actually going to explain one thing you want to make sure you do when you do this next one is you want to pull this plastic relatively tight. Because as I'm sure you're all aware, whenever you get plastic bags from shopping or whatever, they don't come out completely smooth anymore, right? Once you have stuff in them, they get wrinkly. So you want to pull this fairly tight so it comes out smooth. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but just as long as it doesn't look, you don't want something that looks like that. You want something that looks a little bit more like that. So we'll just lay down our other little bead of glue. Like I said, I'm going to pull this kind of tight. Like I said, not tight enough to cause any damage or anything, but tight enough to where we get most of the wrinkles out of our plastic. So now, and then if you're finding that you're having the plastic is coming away a little bit from one side of your window, you can just lay down another little bead of glue there too. So I'm going to do that here. Just kind of going to pull the plastic back here. Just put down another little drop or two of glue just to make sure that we have our plastic tight. So I'm pretty happy with that. So now, believe it or not, our light box is pretty much finished now. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take our light. I'm going to show you another couple tricks with your light. So you can do this with just about any LED light. You can use a flashlight. You can use one of these lights that I found. These are called puck lights. You can also get little LED lights for free from certain discount hardware stores. So depending on what you have, you can use literally any light. So like I said, flashlight, one of these little lights like this. And what you want to make sure you do, so what we're going to do now, we have our light, try not to wash out the camera too much. We're just going to put that under our plastic here. And we're going to come back to the overhead view. And if you can see that there, it's a little bit washed out. So you can't see it on my end, but you want to make sure that you have the light far enough away from your plastic that it appears as one solid area of light. So, and on my end here, as I move this closer to the plastic, then you can see that this looks more like 5 individual lights than it does one unified source of light. So maybe I can put, I wonder if that'll shine through. So you can see those 5 dots of light there. That's how many lights I have here. And so if you don't have your LED far enough away, then you'll just get 5 dots of light in your slide rather than even constant lighting. So we want to make sure we get even lighting. So for this box here, you might have to put it on some books or something to make sure that it diffuses right. But this box here, I think I'm pretty happy with that. That's tall enough to where we can work with that. And I'm just going to shove that there. That's fine. So now we have our light box finished, and we have our light on the light box. I'm going to move my hot glue gun out of the way here. Unplug it. All right. So we have our light box, and so I have a couple of slides here that I'm just going to show you how this will look. And what we'll do is we'll just place our slide directly on the camera there, just like that, or directly on the light box. And now we'll switch over to the phone view. And so let me bring it here. And so you can see as we get closer to it, we can see our image. Now you want to make sure you bring your phone, and you can just use this with your regular camera app. Sometimes people can buy external lenses that will zoom in on their stuff, which that'll work just fine, but you don't even need anything special. You can just use your regular phone camera. That's not even a problem. So what we'll do is you can kind of zoom in here, and you'll notice that the closer we get to our image here, the more it goes out of focus. So the secret to doing this is that you want to make sure that you pull this out just enough to where it's still in focus, but it's as zoomed in as it can be. So that way you can get as large an image as possible, because we're dealing with a very small frame of film here. So we want to get as large an image as possible, and then you can just take a regular picture with that, and then you can crop it, zoom in. See, like I said, that looks pretty good right about there, I think. And then, since I'm not sharing my screen or anything, I can't take a picture, but you can do that just like that. So that's pretty much it. Pretty quick and simple, really easy to do. Literally any box, any shopping bag, as long as it's fairly thick. This one is on the thin side, but as long as it's a white plastic bag that you can shine a light through, you can work with it. And like I said, hot glue, slides, and then you can also use this to scan negatives as well. But negatives are a little bit more tricky because, of course, then you have to invert the image. So if you head over to the Special Collections YouTube channel on YouTube and you search for PCCLD Special Collections, keep an eye out and we'll do a video on scanning negatives with this little box here, and I'll show you how to edit photos to create a positive from that and essentially develop your negatives with your phone. All right, thank you so much for coming. Bye-bye. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to log them in the comments. Like I said, I have somebody off camera watching for the comments, and I'm here to answer questions. Good?